I'm sure you've heard of artists and creatives talking about a word of the year. And it's a really helpful way of having an overarching subject or project or intention for your creative practice in the year to come. So I'm actually recording this on the 6th of January, which is kind of the end of the Christmas season. The Christmas decorations have all got to come down. So it felt like a really good time to go for a walk and actually think about my word of the year. So I'd really love it if you could join me on this journey, and I'm going to share my thoughts on how to pick your word of the year and what it can mean for a fibre artist. If you're new here, my name's Becca and I'm a hand spinner, knitter, slightly stuck weaver, and you're very welcome to my local woodland in West Wales. If you're an old friend, then I was going to say welcome back, but I don't think you've been here. Welcome to my local woodland as well. So I'm going to turn you around and show you a little bit about. I really should have practiced this before I press record, shouldn't I? I'm going to turn the camera around and show you where I am. So this is Millie, if you've not met her before, and we are just walking in the woodlands, and you probably can hear the water, and I'll go and show you where that is. And this is the River Gwaun, which is just sort of down the road from where we live. So my first tip would be to remove yourself from your normal environment. So away from the everyday, the washing up, the ironing, the hoovering. Yeah, that's just a list of things I've got to do, isn't it? But just remove yourself from the everyday and either find somewhere in your garden or come out for a walk like I have, somewhere that is completely different to your domestic environment, so that the thoughts that come to you are not about all the things you've got to do, but just about the inspiration that's all around you. And there is no one right answer or one right word. It's going to be the word that resonates with you. And there are lots of ways of finding that. You could mind map, you could just write yourself a list and see what comes to you. Or maybe there's a word that you keep seeing or you keep hearing, and that's going to be your word. My last year's word was discarded, and the longer phrase was the discarded project. And what that meant to me was that all the making that I did over the sort of 12 months where I set that word as my intention, my word of intention, was they had to be made out of discarded items. And that included dyeing with plants that were weeds, using lap waste, and there certainly are things on the channel where I've used lap waste, and sort of non-spinning things. I didn't buy any new to me clothes. I bought secondhand clothes and I repaired the clothes I already had. And that word that kept coming back to me is discarded. This is a discarded item and I'm turning it into something useful and beautiful and creative. And to me, that sort of really worked. So I'm now going to go back to what I laughingly call my studio, which anybody else would just call a sort of alcove at the side of the house. But anyway, I'm going to go back there and talk a little bit about the process I'm going through to get to this year's word of the year. So I'll see you in a moment. Bye. Well, so much for my plan to record all my footage in a day. It's actually 2 days later, and I got home and the gas had run out, and so I had to go and get gas from the garage, and then the garage didn't have any gas, so I then had to go and to the village shop in Letterston, which all took ages, and I'd lost the light by then, and so I didn't record it. And then yesterday, which is 2 days on, oh gosh, what happened yesterday? So anyway, stuff happened, life happened, and it's actually 2 days later, which I guess is fine with editing, isn't it? So probably I've just spent 2 minutes rambling on about stuff you didn't actually need to know. Anyway, so back to word of the year. And that 2-day gap has actually given me a chance to really solidify in my head as to my word of the year, and I have in fact chosen my word of the year, which I will reveal to you very shortly. So in case you're a little bit stuck and you're not quite sure what words might work for you, I've got a list, and you can use any of these words that you like. It's fine. I mean, they're just ideas and they might not work for you and they might spark something else. So, you know, you can play around with it and just find something that really resonates and you kind of think, yeah, I see that as my word of the year. So my ideas for you are slow, calm, learn, align, focus, expand, reduce, grow, reflect. Okay, so what is my word of the year? My word of the year is story. And I want to tell colour stories, and I want to weave stories, and I want to tell stories about making. And that's obviously through YouTube, because this seems to be my kind of new passion really, and also maybe on my blog, which I haven't actually written a blog post for about 3 months, and I started working on one a couple of days ago, and it felt fresh and like I was ready to come back to it. So after I decided on my word, story, I really felt like I was ready to start picking some projects for the year. And maybe I'll just do a 3-month and then review it. I'm not sure, but I've got some ideas and I've got a project that I want to share with you. And I'm calling this part 2. So in part 2, I'm going to be actually spinning up a sample for the project that I am going to start the new year with. Project. Okay, I thought I would show you how to use one of these, which is a yarn guide. And this one, or a, yeah, yarn guide, I think they're called, aren't they? This is from Katie at Hilltop Cloud, and she is on YouTube and on Instagram, and she does beautiful dyed tops, and I think she does a bit of yarn as well, and she also sells these. So I will show you how I'm going to use that. And the reason that I'm actually using a guide, because as I've said many times before, I'm not a particularly technical spinner. Quite often I'll just kind of make up a bat and just kind of spin, and I don't really care what what yarn weight I've got, what the wraps per inch are. It's just like, oh well, you know, it's just fun. It's my fun. But I've actually got a project that I want to spin for, so I am going to be a little more intentional with my spinning. And I've got a couple of books that I've been looking at. I've got my Spin to Knit, which is by Interweave. Again, pretty sure it's out of print, but there are secondhand copies available. And so that one, but probably not in that colourway. So that was one of my options. And then I had some money from Ziffit. Is it called Ziffit? Something like that. And so I went on to World Books and bought myself some secondhand books. So this is probably out of print as well, but big knitting. Okay, I have shared before that I am not great at big projects, and I get bored, and I mean, it's probably this is like a confessional today. I'm neurodivergent, so I'm dyslexic and I have a side order of ADHD. So what that means as a maker is I get bored really easily. Once that dopamine hit has gone, actually getting projects over the finish line can be a bit of a challenge. So if I want to make something like a jumper, big yarn and big needles, it is the key. So this is, when was this published? It was published ages ago, I expect. It wasn't very much. Yeah, 2006. So, you know, the patterns are probably going to be considered to be a bit out of date. But hey, one of the great things about getting older is that you care less and less about fashion and more about clothes that make you feel good. And so This is a project that has sort of taken my eye. Again, I probably won't do that colourway, but yeah, nice big chunky yarn, lovely kind of quick to knit, and just crying out for an art yarn really, I think. So that's my plan. So I'm going to turn you around and we'll go and have a look at the wheel. Before we look at all the fibre I've just pulled out, I'm going to show you this in a little bit more detail. So if you've never used one of these before, basically the idea is that these lines represent one ply of what your yarn will finally be. So this is the wraps per inch of your one ply. So I'm going for a super bulky, so that's the kind of width of yarn that I want when it's just one ply. So we'll obviously ply it up, and it should be correct when I come to ply it, but we'll see. I mean, wraps per inch is never particularly accurate. The only way to be truly accurate is to actually knit up a tension square, which I don't think are called tension squares in the States. Somebody tell me what they're called in the States. I call them a tension square when you knit up. Maybe it is, I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to have a look at that when I'm spinning. And now let's have a look at all the fibre I've pulled out. This feels like a really good transition between my two words of the year. So last year was my year where I was making things out of discarded items. So I was dyeing this with yarrow, which is a weed. So when we were weeding, we had some yarrow, so I dyed some yarn with it, because otherwise it would have been in the compost. When we cut down the peppermint at the end of the season, all the cuttings I used as a dye. Then this is from, this was good fun. This is from the seagrass that grows everywhere around here. Well, not around here particularly, but go down towards the sea and it's everywhere. So that was a really good fun colour, and it can be a bit invasive. So again, it gets cut down because it's a weed. And then this is Buddleia. Gosh, yeah, Buddleia, definitely a weed. Then we've got some recycled sari silk and some lap waste. And then this is the last of a load of fibre that I bought last year that I haven't dyed. So that all comes to about a kilo or so, which is going to be enough to do some testing and have enough for a project, probably a poncho or maybe a jumper. I don't know. I'm going to do some testing of the kind of the spin, see how it knits up, and then I'll probably make my final decision. So how am I going to blend this? Because it definitely does need blending. I'm going to get the blending board out, and I sort of have this idea that I'm going to do stripes, then a layer of recycled sari silk, and then a layer of white on top, and see how that looks. So I'll get the board out and have a little play. coffee bowl of fibre. I want to keep lots of air in that, so when I'm spinning it, let's see how much I'm going to have to. I don't want to put too much twist in. I mean, that's probably too much twist, because the more fibre you have, the less twist you need, because it will just hold together. So that's probably, so as you can see on the yarn guide, I'm actually not going to have to do an awful lot to this when I'm spinning it. It's going to be really easy to draw this far too thin. But anyway, we'll get on the wheel and see what happens. It's definitely worth noting that I'm spinning on a 1980s Ashford traditional, and I only have 2 whirls. I'm spinning on the larger whirl because I want a bulkier yarn, but I don't have a jumbo flyer. And you can get jumbo flyers for the Ashford traditional, and it would definitely have made this spin a lot easier. But I'm persevering. I also think I probably pre-drafted my fibre a little bit too much, so I was struggling a little bit with some of it. But you live and learn, and I hope you learn by watching my mistakes, if nothing else. So I kind of played around with it and altered the tension, and you know, by the time I got to the second ply, I had actually sort of figured it out. But just wait till the end and see what you think of the yarn. Here is my finished yarn, and you can see how chunky it is. Wow. I'm quite tempted to get a jumbo flyer because I think this is great. Really like this. This is so far away from the yarn I normally make. Okay, so I'm going to knit that up into a little sample. The biggest needles I've got, I think, are 15 mil. So whether that's going to be big enough, I'm not sure. Anyway, we will see, and I'll come back to you when I've knitted it up. I did, in fact, only have 10mm needles, which I believe is a number 15 in the US, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So there you go, there's it. It is all knitted up. I think it really does need to be on bigger needles. And in that big knitting book, they actually suggest 20mm needles, which I think actually would work really well. I'm pleasantly surprised. I was really unsure when I was spinning this what it was going to turn out like, but I think it's really good fun, and I am all about having fun with handspun. So there you go. Let me know what you think. I definitely see the value in doing samples, and I hope you see the value in doing samples. I definitely will change the way I pull this out. I won't pre-draft it quite as much as I did, and now I'm off to go and find some bigger needles. So I thought we'd finish this video where we started. I'd like to say a big thank you for watching and to getting all the way to the end of the video. I'm aware it's quite a long video this week. I'd also like to say some thank yous. Thank you to Lisa the Soulful Spinner for putting my channel details on her Instagram last week. That was very lovely. Thank you to the wonderful person that bought me a coffee, and any money that I get on the Buy Me a Coffee I will use to buy fibre to demonstrate on the channel. Also, big thank you to everybody that commented on last week's video. I think my conclusion is I will try and do 1 video a week, and if I don't manage it, oh well, there'll be one the following week. So thank you very much. I'd love to know if you choose a word of the year. So either leave a comment below or pop over to Instagram and say hi and let me know what word you have chosen and how it has inspired your making. So as ever, until next time, happy creating.